Welcome to the first episode of the Python Fundamentals series. We'll be learning the fundamental concepts of Python together throughout this series. Python is one of the most popular programming languages. It's simple, powerful, and used everywhere. It's used from building websites to analyzing data, creating games, and now is using artificial intelligence. So before we play around with Python, we'll want to first install Python. You want to first go to the official Python website and install Python for your computer. It's a pretty simple process, and once you have Python installed, you can go to your terminal and check whether Python is available. So you can check by doing Python version, and here you see that I have Python 3.11.6, and you can call up the interpreter. The Python interpreter is how the computer actually reads your Python scripts and Python language. So you can test and play around with it by saying print hello, and you can see that the interpreter prints out hello. You can play around with it by doing other calculations. Let's do 10 times 3. The Python interpreter is a pretty great calculator. So aside from using the interpreter inside the terminal, you can actually write a Python script and then run the script. So you want to make a file with a .py extension, and that just tells the computer it's a Python file. And within the Python file, you can essentially write your Python code. So for here, we can just go hello world. We want to save the Python file, and within your terminal, you can call the Python file you just created with the Python command. Make sure that when you're using the terminal, you're currently in the location that your Python file has been saved. So we can call hello.py, and there you go. You can see hello world has been printed, and you successfully wrote your first Python program. So next, I want to talk about variables and data types. So what is a variable in Python? Variables are one of the most basic concepts in programming, and a crucial building block as we get further down our Python fundamentals. You can imagine a variable as a labeled box where you can store information. You give the box a name and you put something inside, and you can use it later in your program. So here's how it works. We declare a variable by giving it a name, and anything after the equals will be stored in that variable. So here we can say Bob. Once we have the variable, we can always call the variable and use it in our program by just referencing x. So here we can just print out x, and if we were to run the program, we can see that the program prints out Bob. And if we were to change x again to something else, say Alice, so here if we print out x again, in our program we should be seeing Alice instead of Bob. So we see we first printed out Bob, and then afterwards it prints out Alice. Python variables can be anything. It can be numbers such as 10, and if you print it out, it'll print out 10. So regarding Python variables, there are 4 basic data types. The first one is a string. The second one are integers. The third one is what we call a float. And the fourth one is what we call booleans. You can essentially treat strings as text data. Anything in between a double quotations or a quotation mark will be treated as strings. An integer are whole numbers, so it can both be a positive and negative. When we're working with decimal numbers, we use the float data type, and essentially anything that has a decimal point will be categorized as a float in Python, positive or negative. And booleans are just a true or false value. In Python, you can check what type the variable is by using the type function. And here we have A as a string, B as a number or integer, C as a float, and D as a boolean. And when we print it, we should see that it will show the respective class types. Here you see it has string, int, float, and boolean. One last thing I want to talk to you about is type conversion. Sometimes when you're working with data, you may want to convert it from one data type to another data type. And this is what we call type conversion or casting. So Python has made it quite easy for us by having built-in functions like int, float, string, and bool. So let's run through an example of type casting. So let's say we initially have a variable x of 20.5. So this would automatically be a float since it's a decimal point. So you see the two print statements. First, we'll print out the variable x, and then it will show you what type it is. And then after we print out the print statement, we will cast it into an integer using the int function, and then we'll print out the same statement and see what it is. So here you see it first printed out 20.5 is data type class float, and then the second, since we've casted it into an integer, it would only show the whole number and not the decimal point, and also is turned into a integer class. So this is a very basic example of type conversion and casting. It can get very complex, but I'll probably touch on this on a future video. So thanks for watching to the end. This is only the first video of the Python Fundamentals series. I hope you learned something today and stay tuned to the other videos in the series.